Hi, everybody. Peg Fitzpatrick here for another Art of Social Media Power Users Hangout. Today's social media power user is Mr. Thomas Hawk. Say hello.
Hey, hi there.
And, of course, my co-author and co-host, Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Say hello. Okay. Clearly, I'm going to have to do most of the talking today.
Well,
So I'm
we
really
just got
excited to have.
we just got back from New York and DC, and I'm like all talked out. I mean, I just
I know, me too.
say
But I am very excited to have Thomas here. I have been a huge fan of his photography on Google Plus, which is where I first found you. And I love following you all over on social media. If people do not follow you, I will be wildly surprised. You are on Pinterest, Instagram, Tumblr, Flickr, Ella, which I know we'll get into that later. You're really everywhere. You're on Tumblr. You do every single social network that I know of. So I'm super excited to talk about what you love about the different social platforms and how, as a photographer, you feel it gave you a different kind of voice than being an offline photographer.
Sure. Yeah, you bet.
So let's just dive in. Which
All right.
one is your favorite, Thomas?
Well, I kind of like them all in their own way, but I think right
Uh-huh.
now my current favorite is probably Ello.
really.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah,
feeling you were going to say that.
not necessarily because it's the largest audience for me, which it's definitely not, for sure. But
Right.
as an artist and as a photographer, a lot of the people that have gravitated towards that site early on are very talented artists and photographers. And so I really kind of enjoyed the social interaction side of things with those people. And I also like what conceptually what the site represents as far as, no advertising, and they're not going to sell your personal data and all of these various things. So I like that idea, the idea of that, and I like competition. So I love when these social
Mhm.
networks compete with each other, because I think when they compete with each other, the user wins. I mean, we win as we all want to make it better and better and better for us. So, and then finally, as a photographer with Ello, the photos there are so big, and they just look so
Mhm.
beautiful, gigantic. So I love that. So that's kind of, and also maybe just because it's something new, and I tend to, I'm the type of person. A lot of people I know that something new comes along and they're like, oh, I hate it, before they even try it. And
Uh-huh.
it's like, if it's new for me, I love it. I want it. I want to jump in and dive in with both feet. And so anything new that comes along, I'm the opposite of a lot of people that are hesitant to join new things. I just love it. So I like Yellow a lot, but I post every day to Google Plus and Facebook and Instagram and Flickr, and you know, so I use them all every day.
What
But
kind
Ello,
Yeah.
what tools do you use to post, or are you rolling your own manual every one of them?
yeah, I mean, so as an artist, my primary interest in social media is to distribute my art, right? And I look at social media almost like, I mean, I think you can get more exposure through social media as an artist than you can through traditional museums. And I think you can just have so many more people see the art that you're creating. And so for me, a lot of it is I've created the art, and I'm a prolific producer of photography. I have hundreds of thousands of frames that I've taken, and I've edited now about 100 and probably 30,000. And those
Mhm.
photos I want to distribute out online. So once I get the work done of creating the photos, I use Flickr as my primary archive, and I upload, maybe 30 to 35 photos a day to Flickr, and
35
that's
a day?
yeah, 35 per day. So I take a lot of pictures though. I mean, I'm doing a lot of projects. I'm documenting the 100 largest cities in America. I'm shooting all 50 states. I've got, well over.
Yay! So you're going to come to New Hampshire.
Oh, I'll come to. I'll be there eventually.
I can't wait for you to come here. It'll be
Yeah.
the last one you hit, but that's okay.
I mean, weekend before last, I was in Milwaukee, and I shot Milwaukee for the first time in Wisconsin, and did that. And Wisconsin is cold
Mhm.
in November. And the month before that, I was down in Marfa, Texas, and shooting El Paso, and so I'm just knocking these things out one at a time. And when I go someplace, I'll shoot, maybe 15,000 frames while I'm there for maybe 4 or 5 days, and then I come home and I just edit and edit and edit and edit, and so I have so many photos, and then I distribute more selectively on Google Plus. I might do maybe 3 or 4 photos a day to Google Plus and Facebook both. I use Instagram as a combination for mobile photography with my iPhone, also with not iPhone only. I mean, I know some people do it that way, but I did it that way for a while. But lately, I've been putting some DSLR stuff in there as well. So maybe a couple a day to Instagram, and maybe 1 or 2 a day to LO. But I do it manually. I have all the photos in folders, and I just drag them right over to the site and publish it.
Are you using Aperture, Lightroom, iPhoto? What's the center of your software world there?
Lightroom right now. Yeah, I use Lightroom as my primary processing engine. Occasionally, I'll take something into Photoshop if I need to really do something, unique to a photo. I do like, some of the Nik software, so that Google's come out with. So the Photo FX Plus, I love that. I use that to do some effects and stuff. But Lightroom really is the primary processing engine. So I capture most everything on a Canon 5D Mark III, DSLR. I offload the card to my computer. I move the files to Drobo so it's backed up and replicated. And then I just day by day start processing those shoots. And then after I finish them, they go into to be uploaded folders. And some of that stuff, some of it's just random from there, what gets uploaded.
Do you shoot RAW?
Only, yeah. Only RAW.
RAW, okay. And so what's your workflow? You shoot RAW, you have it on a card, you stick the card in your computer, and then what? You go straight to Lightroom?
Yeah, so then I basically, from my card, I go straight to Lightroom, and part of that, Lightroom converts it to DNG, which is their own proprietary file format, which I like better than RAW, the native RAW. So it converts it to DNG, and then from there, I've got that day's shoot by date in a folder. And most of the time, if I go on a trip for 4 or 5 days, I'll typically process one of those days from that trip right away.
Okay.
So I finished up this last weekend El Paso, 1 day of my 5 days in Texas. The other 4 days go onto a Drobo into a to be processed folder.
Okay.
And I'm way behind on that. I'm right now processing stuff from January 2011. So everything.
Have you heard of TaskRabbit?
Yeah, I know. I've got literally millions of photos that I've never even looked at in folders on my hard drives. So my philosophy is right now, while I'm young, I need to be out shooting as much as I can. And later on in life, I mean, I want to publish 1 million photos before I die. Later on in life, when I'm older and it's harder for me to get around and it's easier to sit in front of a computer and process, plus technology is going to get better and faster and easier and all that, I'll catch up later.
Amazing. You're going to have a lot to catch up on.
There's going to be some show on Discovery, you know, the late Thomas Hawk. We went in and we found his Drobo drive and we found 1 million photos he had never even seen. So now, you know, it'll be like opening up the vault of, God, what's the mafia guy in Chicago that Geraldo did?
Al Capone.
Jimmy Hoffa.
Al Capone, right? Right. So it'll be publicized like Al Capone's opening up the vault. Well, if you use Drobo, do you put anything in the cloud? Like, what happens if your house burns down?
Right. Well, that's a good question. I do keep a copy of a lot of my finished photos off-site. So away from my house. I have copies at my parents' house down in Los Angeles. I keep copies at my office. And I need to work on a better strategy. So part of this year, what I was going to do is I was going to work on making duplicate copies and putting them in a bank safety deposit vault. So I think that's the way to do it. I mean, robos will they protect you against hard drive storage failure, which is, the biggest problem.
Right.
But sometimes, there are people. Gary Winogrand, the famous street photographer, he died and he left behind 300,000 photos that he never edited.
Yeah.
So these things happen, and sometimes you lose them. I haven't lost a lot of photos, but every now and again you do. I mean, somehow I lost a whole day of Miami, all these neon signs, and so I had to go back actually this year and reshoot all those old neon hotels in South Beach.
Yeah, sure. You had to go back to the South Beach.
Yeah, I know. It's a tough place, huh?
I love how you organize your photos by city, and then you also have sometimes by color and topics. Can you talk about how you decide to name your photos? Because I love each one is almost like a little teeny piece of poetry. They're very thoughtfully named.
Yeah, I think photos are interesting. I think sometimes a good, strong title will resonate with people. And as an artist, you have a lot of poetic license in terms of what you can do with that. I feel like I should spend even more time than I do on the titles, but sometimes I feel like I spend way too much time as it is. Sometimes they come from songs and music and lyrics, and sometimes they come from just stuff that pops up into my head while I'm looking at a photo. Sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's a mood, sometimes it's a color. I tend to title them pretty fast and go through. Sometimes it'll be a series. I'll batch title something from like one shoot, a series of titles, so I'll use the title more than once.
But it sounds like you're not doing this titling because you believe in some kind of SEO black magic that's going to make more people find the photo, right?
No, in fact, if I did, I would be doing the opposite. Because if I was really concerned with SEO, if that was a primary concern with titles, I would be very, very descriptive. Because if you want to have your photo index high for the Golden Gate Bridge, you wouldn't title it, the beauty of the morning sunrise. I mean, you would title it Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
For SEO. So, I do use keywords, and those are very searchable, and those can help with SEO. But titles, to me, it's just more of a feel, and I know I probably lose on SEO that way. But as an artist, it's just part of the statement about a photo. It's about what it means to me.
But you gain it when people love the title. Like, I love the titles. I think I've commented on some of your stuff before, saying, I love the title because it gives you a little bit of insight into, what you were thinking and what you feel about it, even though maybe you took it a few years ago now.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the problems.
It adds another layer.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll be in a title and I'll be in an emotionally good place or a bad place or whatever 4 years ago, and that's when I title it, and now it's just coming out now. People will be like, well, why are you so sad? Or it's like, I'm not. It's fine. But maybe 4 years ago I was sad.
So when you're in a city or shooting remotely,
yeah,
you're carrying a MacBook, I assume, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So now you shot 5,000 shots in El Paso. They're 50 megabytes each.
Yeah.
And so now you take them from your camera, you stick them into your MacBook, and how do we get from MacBook to Drobo? Are you when you get home, do you sync your MacBook, or do you what do you do? Because that's a lot of transferring.
Yeah. So the problem is that oftentimes out in the field, I'll take more photos than can even really fit even on the Mac hard drive.
Right.
Space I've got. So I have a Drobo Mini.
Uh-huh.
And so the Drobo Mini comes with me on trips, and that's got 4 2-terabyte hard drives in it, so it's got 8 terabytes, which is like 6 terabytes of replicated data.
Wow.
So, so I've just basically done everything on the Drobo Mini, which is pretty small and easy to travel with. And then when I get home, I just take the Drobo Mini, I plug it into the iMac, and then I copy them from the Drobo Mini to the Drobo 5Ds.
Uh-huh.
Which are they have the larger hard drives, and it's more of my primary storage. So it kind of gets through that, and then that way I always have things are replicated all the time from day one when I take it off my card, and so I don't have to worry about losing things that way. Like if my Drobo Mini were stolen or something happened to it, I'd be in trouble. But and then once they're there, like I say, I'll take 1 day typically of the trip and process those. That immediately is next in the queue. So like right now I'm working on, this weekend I'll be working on photos from Milwaukee, one of the days from Milwaukee. And then the rest of Milwaukee and my Wisconsin trip in Chicago, that all gets dumped back into the archive. And someday when a turn comes up, 5-6 years from now, I'll process that.
So if you're looking at, let's say, you know, you're moving and grooving, you're looking at 5,000 photos that you took a day, you're in Lightroom, are you doing just flag, delete, flag, delete, flag, delete, flag, delete, and you just rip through it? Or are you rating them 1 through 5? What do you do?
Yeah, so what I do, the first pass is flagging, right? So I never delete anything. I always save everything. There's no, storage is cheap. There's no reason ever to delete a file or a photo, in my opinion. But I just flag. So if I take 3,000 photos, I might flag 800 of them.
Okay.
And so then I'll process those. So once I'm done flagging, then I start the processing. And typically I'll process, I'll process those. That could take a week just to process those. And then when I'm done processing those, I'll then keyword them all, and then I'll title them all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it can take a while, and finally when I'm done with all of that, again, I've been playing around with stuff that you can do with effects and stuff that you can do with film and emulation and stuff like that. So sometimes after that I'll take them and move them in Analog FX Pro 2, the Nik software, which I think is some of the most interesting effects software out there right now. And I'll process and make a duplicate copy of it. Sometimes I'll keep the original that I had before and just have two versions of a photo. Sometimes I'll unflag the original version and just keep the Nik version. Sometimes I'll, so I just, once I go through all that process, then I export after I'm all done.
But at the end of the day, you have a raw copy and a DNG copy of every photo you take?
No, I only keep the DNG.
Ah.
So I don't keep the original raw, which maybe I should, but I think that the DNG file is, it's basically ubiquitous. It's as far as raw goes, it's just as good. It's lossless. It's got everything there. And maybe someday though, the Adobe format 50 years from now, people don't recognize it, but maybe there'll be conversion tools that come up if that's the case. And so, but no, I don't keep I don't keep the DNG and the raw. Okay. Some of my older stuff before I was converting to DNG, and I convert to DNG. My belief is that DNG is faster in Lightroom than raw, working with raw files.
Yeah.
So I think that my Lightroom, and that's kind of what Adobe has said in the past. So for me, that's what I do. But either way.
And are you shooting only prime lenses?
Mostly prime lenses, yeah. Not only, I would say. My favorite lens is the 135 f2. I shoot that that's probably 65% of the photos that I make. I also own a 50 f1.2, which I love. I'm sorry, the 135 f2 and the 50 f1.2. And then I've got a 24 1.4 that's prime and a 14 that's a prime. But I have the 8 to 15 fisheye, which is not a prime. And I love playing with that. I can do interesting things with that. When I shot Coachella this last year, I used the 70 to 200, which I wanted the flexibility of the zoom for being in a fixed area on stage, and that's a very sharp lens and a terrific, one of the best Canon makes. So I will shoot zoom sometimes, but I would say 95% of my photography is done with prime lenses because they're sharper, they're faster, they're better quality, all that.
My theory is that real men shoot raw and prime.
Yes, I agree. I'm down with that.
So
I think a lot of people, it's just whatever's in your hands. You can be creative with it.
I was going to just segue over to iPhone because I know you shoot a lot on your phone as well. You were iPhone only on your Instagram. I also sometimes put some of my regular photos on Instagram. But shooting with your smartphone, do you have any tips for people for getting great pictures with the camera in your hand instead of nothing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about the processing. I think a lot of it is, really utilizing the software available to you to process. So right now, I think some of the best ones, I think Snapseed is one of the best, processing engines out there for iPhone.
Yeah, I use that too.
and Android both. I think Visco is another great, there's more great software. But I think you can really change the way a photo looks. And there's little things you can do with Square Ready and to make there's all kinds of little photo apps. But
I like to do that too. I like to shoot square on my phone, so then I have less. Actually, I set Guy's phone to square too. You're shooting square too, Guy. Have you tried Camera Awesome, the app by SmugMug?
I have. Yeah, I like that application too.
I love to use the golden ratio setting in there to get, which you maybe can just do from your eye, but for me, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people they don't process enough. They just take it and publish it, and I think almost any photo can be improved from processing it. So I'm a big believer in that, and I think also look at what other people that you really admire are doing. I mean, my friend Daniel Krieger is an amazing food photographer. He shoots food for the New York Times, and but he does also on his Instagram feed all sort of iPhone stuff. But he's got to look. He gets above the photo. He shoots down on the food. There's a lot of people that do bad food photos. Yeah. And if you kind of look at what some people that really know what they're doing are doing, a lot of it you can just, I don't want to say copy their style, but you can learn some things and say, oh, well, why don't I try doing this the next time I shoot my, plate of fish.
And if you were to go on a vacation, truly a vacation, so you don't want to take your Canon,
right?
Is your iPhone good enough, or do you take X100T, or what do you take as your your sort of casual camera?
I would never ever go on vacation without my Canon.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. You were like, my camera first and then my family. Not that you don't love your family less.
I mean, to me, it's just become, a DSLR has become part of an extension of me when I travel. It comes with me everywhere. And I get the fact that the smaller form factor is attractive, and, I mean, I know people love that, and they're switching to Sony, and they're using Olympus, and they're doing different things in these smaller format cameras. And I think there's some great cameras. See right there, right? Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of cameras, though, Guy. I mean, you probably have 5 within reach right there.
Yeah, well, but I break a lot.
For me, I'll tell you, for me, what it is, it's the lens. Yeah. It's the lens. And I think Canon's lenses are just unmatched. And unless you're like jumping up and going to Hasselblad or Phase 1 or one of these really expensive high-end systems, I think for working everyday glass, I just don't think that 135 is just so sharp. And although there are some lens conversion kits, so like you can shoot that 135 on a Sony now, so you can do it. It's possible.
But you don't get all the auto everything if you do that, right? You lose all the
yeah, it depends on the lens. Yeah, you do lose auto, and that's for me like the 135 f1.2. The auto on that is that's a huge part. Autofocus is so cool.
I have a Sony A7S, and I got the adapter, and I tried some of these Leica lenses. I'm not man enough for those Leica lenses, man. They're just
I can't believe that's the first I've ever heard that. Wow.
They're serious business. Yeah, they're serious business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like. I mean, Leicas are great. They're expensive too, but
yeah.
I mean, for me, part of it too is I just get, I don't want to say stuck in a rut, but I've been using Canon for 10 years, DSLR, and I know that system like the back of my hand, and I've got all the lenses, and
And Thomas, are you doing all this social media stuff for the sheer joy of it, or does it actually lead to shoots and business and sales?
Primarily for the joy of it, as an artist, to distribute and share my work. However, I will say that I make a fair amount of income from my photography, and I credit social media with that. Mm-hmm. In different ways, I make money. I sell prints. I've sold a lot of prints. I don't like to really do that business, and so I've done fairly larger print jobs. I sold One Rincon Tower here in San Francisco. Like the top 4 floors are all my prints up there. So I'll do a larger job that's considerable pay. I don't really do stuff for hire. I used to do that. I used to do a lot of magazine work. I I shot hundreds of photos for San Francisco Magazine and some of these other ones. But I just got tired of having to do something for someone else.
Yeah.
So a lot of my stuff now, I sell stock photography, and they find that on the internet, on social media. A lot of times, I get inquiries just about every day for somebody wanting to buy a license for a photo to use in some capacity, in a textbook, in a magazine, on an advertisement. So, they find it through Flickr, through Google Plus, through Google Search, through different places. I've got a gallery that sells my stuff primarily to like hotels and high-end residential stuff. How much of this business comes through social media? It's people contacting me out of the blue, and I think that I have a large social media footprint, and my stuff indexes really well. I think really helps. I have started working with some brands. So for the first time, I worked with Canon this year, and so I work. I mean, I love Canon. I wouldn't just work with any brand, I don't think, but where like I actually love and use the product, and they said, well, let's do something together. So I made revenue that way, and that's certainly directly responsible because of the social media stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't look at it as this is a business per se. It definitely is a business, but it's not the primary. My primary motivation, and I have a day job in the investment business, so from that standpoint, it's not my primary income.
What do you do during the day?
I work in the investment business. Mostly, I manage money for wealthy individuals. So
who knew?
Yeah.
Thomas Huck's career is a real job, like 9-to-5er.
Yeah, I've got that business, and I've been doing that for over 20 years. So, I mean, I love that business too, and I do a good job at that. It's something totally separate. I really try not to mix that in my photography and my artwork because I do want to kind of keep, I don't want to say pure, but.
But how do you like do that during the day and then go to El Paso for 5 days? I don't understand how you.
Well, take a long weekend. Do a long weekend, and you can get some time off. I get some time off, so. And I can still be on top of the markets and where they're at, even remotely. But a lot of stuff I'll do my shoots. I'll take off on a Thursday and come back on a Monday. So I take a couple days off, and I'm still here, and I've got a really good assistant, and I've got help and all that. So.
So you're not working for a large firm like Goldman Sachs or something. This is Thomas Hawk Inc.
No. Actually, I am working for a larger firm.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, but I can't. I'm really not at liberty to say because it's not,
Because he's working right now.
Well, it's just I try to keep my photography stuff a little bit separate from what I do during the day.
I have to say you've done a great job of keeping that separate.
Yeah.
Props to you. Yeah. I started my career at an investment company.
I like doing it.
Thomas, I always thought you were CIA, and this was like a front for you to track.
No, I would not be good CIA at all. I hate to torture people. No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure that's a controversial.
Say that because he really does like to torture people. Well, Guy's favorite show is 24, so he's all about getting the information he needs any way that he wants.
I see a conspiracy everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is so not true. You never in real life think like that. Too much TV. Okay, well, we are wrapping up at the 30-minute mark, so I would like to say thank you very much to Mr. Hawk for joining us and sharing some of your awesome power tips for social media. And now the big secret has a real job on the side.
Well, here's the one power tip, though, that I didn't give yet.
Oh, okay.
You have to read this book.
Yay!
Yes. All of the answers, all of the techniques, actually, you know what? There is, speaking of the book, there's so much good stuff in there. There really is on how to use social media. A lot of it I feel like I employ already some of these practices.
Yeah.
But you guys did a great job on this book and advising people, telling them how to do, make a footprint in social media, and it's a great book.
Well, thank you, Thomas.
You touched on one thing that we didn't cover, which is being a competitive person does help in social media because you always want to do better, not competing with others, but just for yourself to do better, and that is a power user, I think, shared trait.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah. I think the key takeaways are prime lens, shoot raw, and read our book. Right. That's all.
Yes. That's. And your numbers will skyrocket.
Awesome.
All right, Thomas. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
guys. Good to
you.
catch up.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.